STL Ocarina recently released an updated version of their Zelda 12-hole, but is it actually better than the original Zelda 12-hole? Let's find out. What's up, amigos? My name is David, and today we're comparing STL Ocarina's two different versions of their Zelda 12-hole Tenor. But before we do that, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you know whenever I post any review, tutorial, or music video. So as I mentioned, STL recently released this updated version of their Zelda 12-hole Tenor. It still has the same tuning and range of their original 12-hole Tenor, but there are some subtle differences I'd love to look at today. First, a quick note, even though they do call these their Tenor models, they are widely known as Alto CA Ocarinas when compared to classification systems around the world. So STL has been producing their original Zelda 12-hole Tenor since about 2008. It's pretty popular Zelda Ocarina in the community, and this is actually their second edition of this particular Ocarina, which had a lot of great improvements over their original. The tone was clear, it was much easier to reach the low B and A with the subholes, and you didn't really need the acute bend at the top either, so this was a pretty good Ocarina. So I was a little curious as to why they decided to release an updated version, and again, there are a few differences. Aesthetically, you can see that it is a lighter shade of blue compared to the original. You can also see that the Triforce is actually a little bit different as well. Personally, I do like the original Triforce a little bit better. Even though they're both decals, you can see that this is maybe a better version of the original Zelda Triforce versus this one, which has a little less detail. Also, on my particular Ocarina, it's off-center. I also feel that this color of the Ocarina is closer to the one in the video game, so that was a good change, and immediately you notice that it's also smaller. So for someone with larger hands like me, I noticed that this was much more comfortable to hold because of how spread out the tone holes were. It's much easier, but on this one it feels a little more cramped, but I can see this being easier to play for someone with smaller hands. Another thing I liked is that they didn't put the STL stamp prominently on the Ocarina. That was kind of an eyesore for me personally on the older one, but on the newer one, it's nowhere to be seen, which was a good choice. Now, sound-wise, there are a few differences as well. On the old Ocarina, I love that on the high end, you didn't need the acute bend. The high notes were pretty clear. You didn't need to reposition it in a way to make the tone improve at all, but the low end suffered considerably because of it. The low B is fine, but the low A requires such a huge drop in breath pressure that it's almost inaudible. You can't really hear that low A pitch, or even the low B flat. It's very difficult to hit. Alternatively, on this Ocarina, the subholes are much more greatly improved. The low A is much more audible, but the high end is not very good at all. The high E and F are very difficult to get out without using the acute bend, which is a shame. But as for the tone on both, this Ocarina is actually much louder than this one, but it's a softer breath requirement. It's a much lower breath flow, whereas this Ocarina requires more air and it's a little bit quieter somehow. So if you like Ocarinas that require a little bit more breath, this might be a better choice for you. But if you don't have quite as strong breath support and would like something that requires a little less air, this might be a better choice for you. Something that might have factored into that is the shape of the voicing. The difference is pretty interesting. This is a sharper point in the teardrop shape, whereas this one is a little bit more oval. I like how this tone is a little bit darker, and this one I notice is a little bit more bright. To wrap up this review, I think it really depends on what your goals are for this ocarina. As a performer, their original Zelda model I feel suited more of my needs. I feel that I like that it requires a little bit more breath pressure. I don't mind that it can't go down to the low A. I usually try not to go below the B anyway, and it's pretty audible on this. And I like that I don't need the acute bend to reach the high F on this one. But for this one, because it was a little bit more cramped for myself personally, I think I would play this one a lot less. I really do like that the subholes are a little bit stronger. It is a little bit easier to hear, but not having that high F and having it so airy and breathy at the top was a big turnoff for me. As a Zelda fan, I would say that this is probably a more accurate replica. I like the color they chose for the glazing. The Triforce being off, that was a bit of a bummer, but I really liked the concept of the shape, even though it doesn't fit my hands personally. Kids might enjoy playing this one a little bit more, and not having that high F might not be that big of a deal for most Zelda fans playing this ocarina. So that's gonna do it for this review. Which one of these are you more interested in? And if you own one or both, I'd love to see your initial thoughts in the comments down below as well. If you enjoyed this type of comparison video and would like to see more, be sure to give this video a like. A very special thank you to my patrons for making these videos possible. And if you'd like to help support these reviews as well, be sure to check out my Patreon page, patreon.com/DocJust4, where you can grab MP3s, backtracks, sheet music, and a whole lot more. So thank you for checking that out. Be sure to come back next Thursday for another review. And until then, hope you all have an amazing week. I'll see you then.